They call him the Wizard. Chapter 2. The Visionary's Leap. After his wild success, or chaotic misadventure, depending on who you asked, with the 10 Hz brainwave synthesizer, the Wizard thought he'd seen it all. Floating in a sea of stars, tuning into far-flung frequencies, and maybe even bumping into an astral Elvis had been quite the ride. But there was one particular vision that stuck with him for years, a fleeting glimpse that he couldn't quite shake. In one of his many sessions with the machine, there was a moment where everything shifted. 1 minute, he was drifting through fields of light, and the next, he found himself in what looked like a hospital room. The air was sterile, and doctors surrounded him, their faces obscured by surgical masks and goggles, working intently on something. Him, perhaps? For a brief second, he thought he felt the cold touch of instruments on his skin. But before he could figure out what was going on, the scene blinked out like an old TV shutting off. He wasn't sure if it was a vision of another timeline, a future, or a parallel universe. But it left him with more questions than answers. Years passed, and the Wizard couldn't let go of that memory. His fascination with time and consciousness deepened, and he began to wonder, could time travel be more than just a physical thing? What if it was a mental journey, one that could be triggered by the right frequencies and brainwaves? After all, he'd already taken himself on trips beyond the stars with nothing but his old synthesizer and some well-placed electrodes. The idea of manipulating time itself intrigued him. He dove headfirst into the world of binaural beats, those strange audio frequencies that, when played into each ear, created a third frequency, a beat note, right inside the brain. The Wizard theorized that by tuning these frequencies to match the brain's natural rhythms, he could unlock hidden potentials in human consciousness. He even gave the phenomenon a name, the Petrodyne effect, a kind of resonance between frequencies that created something entirely new. So he did what any self-respecting wizard would do. He built a new machine. This one was sleeker, more refined than the old brainwave synchronizer. It had dials for adjusting the beat notes, toggles for shifting between frequencies, and a headset that looked like something pulled from a 1980s sci-fi flick. When he fired it up, it hummed with power, the twin frequencies creating a subtle, pulsing beat in his ears. At first, the experiments were mild, just shifts in perception, a sense of time slowing down or speeding up. But then things started getting weird. On one session, he found himself slipping out of his body entirely, floating above the lab, watching himself adjust the controls as if he were some kind of ghost. Another time, he felt as if his mind was hurtling through space, past planets and stars, until he reached something. It wasn't just light or energy. It felt like a presence, an intelligence watching him from the other side of the universe. And then the visitors began. It started with dreams, strange figures standing at the edge of his consciousness, watching, waiting. But soon they became more real. He started having visitors, beings who claimed they were from distant galaxies, other dimensions, and even future timelines. They communicated in ways that went beyond language, implanting thoughts and ideas directly into his mind. One of them, a tall, silver-skinned figure with eyes that shimmered like liquid mercury, told him they were from a place far outside the Milky Way. They'd been watching him for a long time, ever since he'd started meddling with those frequencies. Apparently, his little experiments had caught the attention of beings far beyond Earth. But it wasn't just extraterrestrials. Time travelers began appearing too, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in what felt like waking reality. They spoke of alternate histories, worlds where the moon had never been visited, timelines where humanity had already spread across the stars. One particular time traveler, a scruffy, half-madman with wild hair and a jacket full of gadgets, warned him that his experiments were dangerously close to unlocking something big, something that could bend the very fabric of reality. Time, he had said with a grin, isn't what you think it is. And once you start playing with it, there's no turning back. Undeterred, the Wizard kept tinkering, coupling his frequencies with biofeedback from the body, experimenting with different bionotes, frequencies that corresponded to the natural rhythms of the human system. Each experiment opened new doors, not just to other dimensions, but to other minds. He'd sometimes wake up in the middle of the night with the sensation that he wasn't alone, that other consciousnesses were sharing his space, watching him, guiding him. One particularly vivid experience took him to a mirrored world, an alternate Earth where everything was the same, yet completely different. The skies were a deeper shade of blue. The technology was more advanced. But people still rode motorcycles and sipped coffee at greasy diners. In this world, he was still the wizard, but instead of a motorsports shop, he ran a high-tech laboratory, experimenting with time travel openly. People came to him for advice on how to traverse timelines, as if it were no different than booking a flight to Europe. It was an odd, yet strangely comforting reality. As the years went on, his network of contacts, both terrestrial and otherwise, grew. He found himself in secret conversations with scientists, mystics, and philosophers, all of whom were fascinated by his work. They whispered of ancient technologies lost to time, of civilizations that had mastered the art of time manipulation long before humanity had ever invented the wheel. Some even claimed to be remnants of these lost worlds, surviving through time via technologies no one could comprehend. The wizard, ever the curious explorer, didn't dismiss any of it. He simply smiled, nodded, and filed the information away for later. The journey was far from over. He still didn't know exactly what that hospital vision had been about, or why he'd been chosen to explore these strange realms of time, consciousness, and extraterrestrial contact. But one thing was certain: his experiments had opened a door that could never be closed, and he was ready to see what lay on the other side. To be continued. Global Robotics Corporation, Global Robotics Corp. Please like, comment, and subscribe.